Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming for this webinar. I'm Swapnesh Sebastian, your faculty, and I will be taking you through this very interesting session of job stress in the topic from organizational behavior. Let me just introduce myself before we start this webinar. My name is Swapnesh Sebastian, as I already mentioned once, and I started off as an engineer working for Nokia Priority Service, which is a service center which was a service center for Nokia, and then decided to pursue my master's abroad in the UK. So completed my MBA in the UK, and then got exposed to the management consulting company CTP International. Worked for them both in the UK and have trained employees on application of theoretical concepts. I have also worked in India for quite a bit. Before we start, let me just quickly mention to you that all the material that we have in this webinar will be available in your Edureka account, both in the form of the PPT as well as the whole session recorded. So once you finish with your session, you can always go back to your Edureka account and be able to access this and use this for your future reference as well. The other thing I'd like you to mention on your chat column is the profile in brief, and also your expectations for the session, so we can see if we can match with what we have today. So just a quick repeat of that. Could you please share your profile in brief and also your expectations for the session, so that we can have an idea of what we have here. So I just want to start. I just want to give it a minute so that all of you can type in all your profile or your profile in brief and your expectations for the session. And on this session, I have at the moment Mayur Bandari, I have Arun, I have Paresh, I have Kartikev Bharadwaj, and I have Mekhala. So I have all these people online. Hi, thank you. I can see a lot of profiles coming in. I have Girish Bhaskaran, who's an InfoSec consultant. I have Paresh, who's working as a freelancer in web technology. I have Mayur Bandari, who is there to deal with pressure from managers. And I have Arun, who's a software professional. Thank you, all of you, for joining me in the session. I have Amit. I have Kartik Bharadwaj. I have Shanta Jayakumar, who has 15 years of experience in the IT and who's working as a senior project manager. I have Anju Shukla, who's working as a HR professional. And I have a BCA graduate. I have Prabhu. And I have Pani Selvam Manamalai. I have Abhinava Rangaraju. And I have Mayur Bandari. And I have Mekhala as well. So thank you all for coming on this session. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you personally for being in this session. And we are here to discuss the topic job stress. And I think job stress is something which is not just important for people who are working in a certain sector or people in the white-collar job. It is something that exists everywhere. And I'm sure all of you would be able to associate yourself with job stress at some point of time in your career. Now, before we start, I just want to give you a couple of icebreakers so that we can get the session started off interesting. Now, the first thing I'd like to ask you to do is if you could all close your eyes for a couple of seconds, and I would mention a word. Just think about, or just meditate or think about the word. And when I say open your eyes, you'll have to open your eyes and tell me what exactly you thought about. Okay? So if you could all close your eyes, it'll be great. So please close your eyes, and I'm going to mention a word, and I'll give you 5 seconds, not 2 seconds. I'll give you 5 seconds, right? And then you can answer me on the chat column. Yeah, you can tell me what you thought about it, right? So close your eyes, and I'm going to say a word. Think about it, right? Here we go. The word is stress. Okay, open your eyes, all of you. If you could just start typing in the question box what came to your mind when I mentioned stress, it'll be great for me to just see what kind of pictures you had of stress, because all of you would have had different pictures of stress. So if you could start mentioning to me what you felt about stress, it would be great. Okay, so I have some answers here, some very good answers. I just want to share it, and this is a lot of things coming in now. Yes, stressed out while they say it's going all fine. Deadlines, yes, I think that's a very, very important word. I think all of us deal with that. Having to deal with multiple tasks at a certain time, and all tasks being of equal priority. Tight timelines, yes, deadlines and timelines. A hammer, oh, that's a brilliant one. Headache, yes, I think headache is more of a consequence of stress. I wouldn't say that headache itself is stress. I probably think headache is a symptom of stress. I I see people mentioning top management. Yes, I think that's another thing that a lot of people find difficult to deal with on a day-to-day basis. People find it difficult to, to think in the same lines as the health issues. Oh, that's another very important thing. I mean, health is wealth. I think health is also an important one. And some person is scared of flying in the air, I think. So that's something that is more of a fear or phobia. I'm not sure that's definitely stress. Maybe it's stress for you. I have pressure to deliver. Yes, pressure to deliver, and I think that is something that most of us in a corporate workplace or in a family face every day. I mean, in a family, you are under pressure to deliver your particular role as a husband, as a wife, as a father, daughter and son, mother, and so on. You are also under pressure to make sure that you bring food to the table. That's another thing. So that's what you have to deliver at home. You also have to deliver at work, which means that you might have to do multiple tasks at the same time. You might have to do good things to achieve certain stuff. You might have to deal with top management as some of the things. It's brilliant because I have a lot of points talking about stress here, and this is what I'm talking about. I mean, stress is not something that is universally defined as a certain thing, but it's something that we have a common framework. And most of these things that we're talking about, symptoms and these pictures of stress, really are different for different people, and they can be different. Different scenarios could provide stress to different individuals, and we're going to discuss some of it in this session. So thank you for the responses, and I hope all of you can see my screen, and on the screen you can see a lady shouting with a mic, and you see three different professionals having three different responses, one looking away, one looking at the speaker, one looking pretending to be looking at the speaker. And I think a lot of us would associate ourselves with this because somebody mentioned top management. So I think this particular picture really talks or represents the top management putting pressure, right? Okay, but what we really need to understand is also that the top management are also under pressure, and they also have certain things to deliver. So we might also get to the position of top-level management. And that's very important for us to understand. That's important for us to also think about, because we move to those positions later in our life. And at the operational level, operational issues give us stress, and the management also gives us quite a bit of stress, and sometimes. But let's look at stress as a technical term before we go into the definition. At the end of the session, what do we expect to be able to understand, and understand what is job stress? Also be able to understand the two phases of job stress, the nature of stress, the sources of stress, and the consequences of stress. A stress questionnaire, just for us to analyze our own level of stress at this moment of time, and look at ways in which we can manage stress as well, and burnout. So this is what we're trying to cover this in this session. And as far as questions are concerned, I would like you to raise your questions on the question column. And there are three ways in which I can answer your questions. One, I could answer it as soon as it's come in. if I get to see it immediately, or I could try and answer it during a certain section which would be relevant to your particular question. The third would be for me to complete the whole, deck and then look into the questions. So I would try to do all three things. I'll try to answer some of the questions as and when they're raised, and some questions during a session section which would be relevant to the question. And the third one is for me to finish and try and answer the questions. So supposing if I've missed out on any question, you can always raise the question again at the end of the session so that we can try and find a consensus, or we can share information, so that will be useful for both of us. And I think this session would be pretty relevant to most of us. I think it's something that most of us would really like to discuss on. So so the question part, please feel free to raise your questions. We are here to discuss and come at a conclusion. Right. If you look at the picture that's there on your screen, you can see a woman who looks pretty tensed and pretty upset about the situation. When we discussed, or when I asked you to share the feelings of stress, I think most of the feelings that were shared about stress, or most of the pictures that you had in mind about stress, were negative. And I think so this picture also is in line with that. But let's first look at the technical definition of stress. There are two terms in science, stress and strain. Let's not go in depth into understanding what they mean, but the stress is an external force which is applied on a body. So stress is considered as an external force which is applied on a body, and strain is considered as the deformation that is caused because of the stress applied on the body. So stress is basically an external force. For example, if you take a rubber band and you expand it, what happens is stress on the rubber band, so it expands, and after you release the stress, you can see that the rubber band has been deformed slightly, and that is strain. So I'd like you to take these two scientific definitions into reality of job stress as well. So if you look at stress as such, it is an external force which is applied on you to complete a task, or to do something at a certain level, or to be able to satisfy the needs and so on. And strain would be the impact of this stretching yourself at the end of doing it. So it's important for us to look at it in that way. So stress is an external force, and strain is the deformation that is caused in the body due to the stress that is caused. So but the question really is stress definitely a good thing or a bad thing? But before we go into that, let's look at, I'd like some answers from you on what you think actually causes stress working in an organization. I would like some answers from you in terms of what really causes stress in an organization. I know you shared something about what you think stress is, but could you please share on your question, what is it that causes stress in a workplace? What is it that causes stress in a workplace? I have a very, very good answer from Mayur. Mayur, thank you for that answer. I think time management. I suppose that's probably something that puts all of us under stress, and the ones who are able to deal with stress are probably the ones who are able to do the two things that have been mentioned first. The first one is time management, and the second thing is thinking too much about assigned tasks. Yes, overworking yourself has really caused. I'm really happy with the answers. Targets set by managers and by ourselves. Okay, so sometimes targets set by the management, or specifically by managers, and tension. I mean, but really, what tension are we talking about, Nicola? Here, are we talking about tension that is a consequence of certain things that we mentioned? Are we talking about the tension that we carry to work? It can be both. Anyway, we have mismanagement. Yes, that's an excellent one. Taking job very seriously. Yes, that can also be something. And I'm going to discuss two types of personalities that will help us understand that better. Tolerance level to do a task. Yes, it also depends upon the kind of role clarity as well as role matching to your personality. High expectations. Yes, high expectations is another one. Sometimes we set targets, and managers actually do this on purpose. They set improbable targets to push their employees to achieve at least the realistic targets. For example, they say try to reach the sky, you at least end up in the clouds. So managers sometimes use that technique to set very high targets, and that causes a lot of pressure. People in higher positions demanding some critical work in a small time frame. Yes, this could be as a result of a change at the customer end. It could be something that they need to be done within a short span of time. Yes. Not prioritizing. Yes, I think prioritizing has something to do with time management as well, because not being able to understand the critical tasks of a job, not being able to deliver the most important aspects of a job can really lead to stress. And I think some of the small things can also give us a lot of stress. For example, the non-availability of power in the workplace at a certain time, the absenteeism of some employees during the critical part of the time, the non-availability of resources. And one of the things that most of us do accept is a universal problem that causes stress is the fact that resources are limited, and those resources include things like time, it includes things like material resources, finance, it includes people resources, it includes all kinds of resources. The need for resources is always unlimited, but the availability of resources is always limited. So when the need is unlimited and when the availability is limited, there's always going to be some kind of pressure to try and get, and there will be competition among the people who don't have to try and get, and so on. So you see, there is a lot of stress in that area. But the question is, most of us seem to portray stress in a negative way, and that's something I'd like you to be able to rethink, because it's important for us to be able to see that as something. Let's look at this photo here. You can see a lot of employees sitting together. They seem to be happy, but the challenge with working in an organization is that people are different, but they have to be working together to achieve a common objective, and that's where the problem is. You can have a lot of problems because of difference in personality. You can have people who are not capable of doing or delivering work on time. You can have overwork as a problem, and you can have critical bosses, and you can have the work environment being difficult, which is a bit challenging. So you can look at the definition of stress here. Stress may be understood as a state of tension experienced by individuals facing extraordinary demands, constraints, or opportunities. So it's some kind of pressure that's being applied to get a job done or to achieve a particular target, and so on. And the question really is, and I would like to focus on this question, so is stress a positive thing? Is stress a negative thing? Or is it only negative, or is it only positive? So that's a very important aspect. So can I have you all just give me a quick answer? Is stress negative? Please answer yes or no on your question column. I have Anish talking about it enhancing focus, brings out the best in us. Yeah. So I see most of you here seem to have a neutral or maybe even a positive. I see, if I look at the results, if I look at the answers given so far, I think a lot of you seem to have given me the answer no. If you look at this graph, I think it would answer the question pretty well. But before you go into the graph, let me first talk about a scenario that happened in the 1998 Football World Cup, which was conducted in France. Now, for those of you who haven't followed football so much, especially in the 90s, let me just give you a brief. So, the 1998 Football World Cup was conducted in France, and the two finalists were Brazil and France. Now, Brazil had a superstar at that point of time called Ronaldo, who is still considered as one of the best players of all time. And France had a star called Zidane, who was about to achieve stardom in that final, who was quite famous, but probably not at the level of Ronaldo. Now, what I want to say here is the World Cup final was an opportunity to achieve greatness for both teams. Brazil went into the final as a favorite, and Ronaldo The advantage they had was they were playing at home. Did to the two individuals here. Went on to win the tournament, went on to win the final. Brilliant headers, and Ronaldo basically was. She was even. It was said that Ronaldo suffered a breakdown the night before, actually unconscious, and he was not fit to play the final, but he actually did. And Zidane, on the other hand, used the opportunity to score two vital goals in the first half, which gave France the World Cup. So, you know, the same stress. The stress was there for both of them, for both Zinedine Zidane as well as Ronaldo. But I think Zidane came out good, using the stress to generate a positive result, whereas Ronaldo had too much of it, and like some of us said that, you know, focusing too much on the consequence and focusing too much on the job assigned, and maybe his own status of being the world's best player at that time caused him to you know, fall on the negative side of stress. So what I'd like to say is, stress is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, stress can get the best out of you. If you look at the graph now, you can see the rust out and the burnout. Now, Zidane probably used the stress to get out of the rust and reach the optimum or the highest performance. And probably Ronaldo, who was at his peak, you know, fell for the stress, and it probably crossed the levels that he was able to exercise, and had a burnout. I'll describe what burnout is in a later stage. So I really would like to say that, you know, stress doesn't really have to be a negative thing. It is something that is applied on a person. Now, how the person reacts to the stress would be very, very, you know, different in different situations. So certain people are stressed with certain things. For example, if you were to ask me, I would say that, you know, a power cut or a lack of air conditioner in the workplace can be something that kind of annoys me and stresses me out. Unprofessional work done by people repeatedly could give me a lot of stress. And so people at different levels would have different things that give them stress. But the thing is, stress is a neutral thing. It could actually get the best out of you, or it could actually burn you out as well. So there are two phases of stress. Now, the challenge or the thing that we're trying to achieve here is to get to a point where we're able to get maximum performance through stress, and not go to the point where we're able to or we're falling into the negative aspect of stress. So let's get that point through, that stress is not a positive or a negative factor. It's about maintaining the best. Yes, I have Manish here saying something on the thing. Yes, sometimes positive. We do perform best under pressure. Yes, and sometimes we fail also. So I do agree with that. But how do we maintain something that is you know, a level, an optimum level in terms of stress? For example, if you have a 10th standard exam, I mean, the 10th standard exam or the 12th standard exam would mean a lot of stress to the students. Now the question is, what if we don't have an exam? I mean, there wouldn't be any stress. That would mean that children would go out without facing real challenges. So there is some amount of stress. I mean, you have students writing exams, some of them, you know, coming out in flying colors, and some of them doing bad as well. So you have both, but stress as such is something which is not positive or negative. That's exactly what we have in the slide. I would really encourage you to you know, raise questions during the session, because it will really help me to, you know, also try and add value to your you know, queries as well. But I hear some people saying that my voice is breaking. Let me try to mute myself and unmute myself once. Okay, I'm back. I'm just trying to, you know, get back to where we were talking, to the point where we were talking, discussing. So we have this idea that stress is neither positive nor negative, right? It can sometimes bring out the best in us. It can also bring out negative consequences as well. Why do we face so much challenges in life? Because there is a competition to win the race of life, and there's a competition to fight for limited resources. There is also a challenge of achieving certain things within a certain deadline or time. For example, you want to build a home by your 30 years old. So what happens is sometimes your finance may not be at the level of uh, the level that you want it to be. So you might be stuck, or you might be low. Okay, so the question I have here is, how do you know if stress is taking a negative bend? Yes, that's a very good question. Let me we have a questionnaire in this session. We have a questionnaire in the session which will show you how stressed you are. So maybe if you can answer the questions in that, you probably will have a lot of clarity on how stressed you are at work, or how stressed you were at work, or how stressed you could potentially be at work as well. So I think that particular questionnaire will be a very important pointer for you to find out what is the level, or whether stress is actually getting to you, or so on, right? So I think, Amit, that particular slide where we'll discuss and we'll ask you to fill out a questionnaire will really help you to understand this particular aspect. Now let's look at a scientific uh, theory which explains how humans react to stress. It's called the general adaptation syndrome. It's called the general adaptation syndrome. It describes how we react in short term and long term to stress. It's about how we respond or react to short term, in short term and long term, to stress. And this was first designed by Sale, who was a physician, and he was from Canada, and he came up with this analysis, and he said that whenever stress is applied on the body, there's a defense mechanism in your system, and there are three levels of reaction. I have a question from Manish. I'll get back to the question after I explain the general adaptation syndrome. So there are three stages in which your body reacts to stress, and the first one is the moment such a factor is applied, or pressure is applied on you, your body generates a trigger or a signal which basically tells the system that there is going to be a change. Let me give you a practical example of this in the workplace. You have a sudden change of a boss. So the moment there's a sudden change of boss, there's a rumor spreading, and there's a panic in the system. People are either looking forward sometimes if the previous manager wasn't good, but in most cases unsure of what the situation. That's an alarm stage. That's the alarm stage. And then you have a system. Once the alarm stage is crossed, your body tends to go into a mode where it starts organizing itself to resist the change, or to see how it can respond to the change. For example, once the manager comes in and sets the expectation, your body or your mind starts creating ways in which you can adapt to the system or respond to the situation. Now that could be pressure as well, because you could have worked under a certain boss in a certain way, and you could have had certain ways of doing things, and suddenly there's a change. Third is the exhaustion. Now when you are under pressure, when you are in the resistance stage for a long time and under severe pressure, there is a likelihood that your body will get exhausted. Now in your alarm stage, your performance level usually decreases as a result of sudden pressure. In your resistance phase, a lot of us tend to do good, either in a positive sense or a negative sense. You either perform well because you have to perform well, or you perform well because you are actually enjoying the new environment. But what happens when you perform because you have to perform? You tend to go into the exhaustion phase, which is the phase where your body gives in. Now let me give you the example of this. When people suffer from heart attacks at a very young age, it could be as a result of exhaustion. Now, I would really like to use a practical example here, a very practical example here. Very recently, we had a professional called Ranjan Das, who was in charge of SAP India, who passed away. He was 42 years old. And it is very important to note that this man was a very active person in sports and in physical activity, and he was really fit. He apparently went to the gym one day, and he was returning home, and after he returned home, he had a massive heart attack, and he passed away. Okay, so I believe that this was as a result of exhaustion, and there was an analysis on why or what happened to him. And in fact, there was an article which spoke about what killed Ranjan Das, and the article really spoke about how this gentleman had complained of lack of sleep for some years, and how he had found it difficult to find time to rest and so on. He was a man who ran marathons. He was a man who visited the gym regularly, and he was quite a successful gentleman as well. But this is what the problem is. I mean, sufficiently long time, and you're not able to cope with it, which will result in something serious or something which will prevent you from working. So that's what the general adaptation syndrome is. I thank Manish for the question. How do you use stress in a positive booster of performance? Now, let me answer that question based on a certain application of theory, in the sense that the type of personality you are will basically help define how you deal with stress, right? There are two types of personalities. One is a type A personality, and the other is a type B personality. Now, when I talk about type A personality, the type A personality is the one who is driven by results, who's really motivated to work, who puts himself under pressure to achieve great results, and also is expecting that out of a lot of people. Maybe a team leader who is a high performer, who wants to achieve a lot of things, and for him the real joy is in achieving results. That means it is a destination that makes him happy and not the journey. Whereas type B personality, the people who are probably not that driven by results, but probably enjoy the journey, who enjoy being with the group. They do perform, but they don't push themselves to exhaustion stage, but they're probably comfortable at the resistance stage. And even though they don't generate the best performances regularly, they tend to enjoy life, and they tend to be a part of the system without too much of stress. So now, type A or type B, I mean, Manish, you would have to, and probably the others would have to define themselves or put themselves in a category. And the question is, should we be a type A or should we be a type B? I would just say you have to be yourself, and probably use some of the things of the other to be more effective. For example, if an organization had only type A personality people, that would mean that there would be, they're all good performance, but there could be a lot of conflict. There could be a lot of challenges in terms of being serious in the workplace. There would be no fun in the workplace. There would be stress. There would be too much competition. There could be too many areas of conflict as well. Supposing we have all type B people, we would have fun in the workplace, but we probably will not get the things done. Now, should I have more type A or type B people? I mean, there's no fixed answer to that. But at least if you could analyze yourself and see whether you fall in the type A or type B, you could probably take some of the things from the other. For example, if you're a type A person, you could take some of the things from type B in terms of enjoying the journey, being satisfied with what you have. If you're a type B person, you probably set yourself some serious targets which you definitely want to achieve while enjoying the journey as well. So this is one of the things that you really have to analyze, Manish, while trying to answer the question. And it is a bit challenging because stress is different for different people. Like, you give different answers for stress. Each person would find different things stressful, and so that's really what we're talking about. And how does stress manifest itself in your life? I mean, I think all of you would know. We have three categories here. We have physical, mental, and psychological. I would like you to really tell me what are probably the physical things that physical manifestation of stress, and how, if you are stressed at work and you probably are finding it difficult to work, what are the kind of physical manifestations that you can have? Let's first discuss the physical manifestations, please. If you could type in your answers, what are probably the physical manifestations of stress? What are the things that you would experience physically if you're under stress? Can I have the answers? Can you please type the answers for me? Breaking things, Abhishek, I think that's an extreme stage where you probably I think the feeling to break things or to throw things around is the beginning, and breaking things could be the other. Girish Bhaskaran, become lethargic. Okay, become physically lethargic. Yes, but that's one thing. Pressing keys very hard. Abhishek, oh, that's a brilliant one. I think slamming the keys. I mean, especially on some of the soft keyboards that you have, could be a very tiredness. Yes, physical tiredness. Yes, feeling tired, not having enough excitement to move or vigor to move could be some of the things. Breathing patterns could be some of the things. Yes, and rushing to conference rooms for quick team meet. Yes, last minute rush. Yes, a lot of physical things. Yes, yes. Thank you for all those answers. Yeah, being tired, lack of concentration could also be something, but I would consider that to be mental. Can we have some mental manifestations of stress now, please? Can I have some mental manifestations of stress, please? Not able to concentrate. Yes, that's probably the best one. Not able to focus beyond a certain limits, certain amount of time. Distractions, lack of concentrations. Anger. Yeah, anger, blunt reactions. Yes, we're moving into psychological reasons as well, psychological manifestations as well. Too much worry, not being productive enough, not being able to do regular things effectively, and feeling sort of dizziness. Yes, feeling sort of blurred visions could be a physical thing, but not being able to focus, not being able to do things that you do normally could be some of the things that we all experience due to stress. Anxiety, yes, we're slowly moving into psychological aspects. I mean, uh, psychological aspects could also have impacts. I mean, you could shout at people. Restlessness. Oh, brilliant. That's yeah, psychological. Being rude. I mean, you are stressed on the inside and you want to explode, and that's a psychological manifestation of stress. Restlessness. Yes, brilliant. Restlessness is not being able to sit in a place or focus on a certain task for beyond a time, and having a lot of Sujata, thank you for that. Restless, cranky behavior. Yes, I would say that childlike behavior, cranky behavior, is very much existent in today's corporate world. You would see childlike behavior, childlike competition, childlike tactics sometimes, and the mental maturity goes, and immaturity kind of sets in, and that seems to be a very, very important thing. And if you are a manager at this point of time, you would have dealt with employees, and probably you would have realized that some of these things are a kind of a new journey with less experience getting an on-site opportunity politics. Oh, that's Arun. I think that's just what's happening today in the IT industry. There is a lot of competition, and really, you have shared something that my friend has experienced. A man who had a lot of experience and a lot of opportunities, but was not given an on-site opportunity, and he was, moaning about it. He was stressed about it. He was frustrated, and he saw his new joinees in his team take off to the US and to Hong Kong on on-site opportunities. Yes, yes, an extreme, level of stress could lead to suicidal thoughts. Yes, some kind of, you know, things where people are under tremendous pressure, not just in terms of delivering results, but even the face of reputation. I mean, some people, I think Dhirubhai Ambani is a typical example for that. I mean, he was under tremendous stress during the allegations against him that he actually suffered certain nervous disorders. So I think this engagement, yes, not being involved, just moving away, could be some of the things. Some people just abstain. They say, "What's a big deal? I'm not really keen on participating. I don't want to really contribute. I will just exist in the system without contributing." Okay, thank you for those responses. Let's look at some causes for stress. I mean, can we have some? We looked at some causes for stress, and let me look at trying to. I have an answer from Sujata Ramani, who's given me a nice, consequence of stress in the sense that some of them really pick up, bad habits, is what she has mentioned. Some activities like probably smoking, probably drinking, and probably drugs and all that on an extreme sense. Michael Jackson was a typical example. I mean, he was considered as eccentric by many, and he came up with a lot of things that were extreme and not very normal in a sense. drinking, smoking, drug addicts. Yes, I think that's what Sujas around me was trying to say. Those kind of extremes could also be issues. So now the question is, what has it had? What kind of impact has stress had on you? Has it made you develop some kind of negative or addictive habit? Has it made your team member or your subordinate kind of do something like that? Have you observed some kind of stress on people? And have you really been able to work on these things and try to help these people? Yes. So let's look at the causes for stress at two levels. One is the organizational factor, and the other is the personal factor. So let's look at first the organizational factor, right? So occupational demands. I think a lot of people spoke about it when we talked about, the kind of pressure that is applied at work. I mean, the kind of for example, working night shifts. That could be something that is challenging for some people. I mean, some people may not be good at working in the night, but that's an occupational demand, and you might have to do it for the sake of the job. So that could be something. A role conflict. A role conflict is a conflict between your personality and the job demands. For example, a marketing profile, a marketing job. There were two people who were working in the same marketing department, and they basically had the same job. They had to market a product in a certain environment in two different regions. You would see Mr. A being successful in marketing and being able to create a brand image, and you saw Mr. B work hard but not be able to do it. Now, the reason why that happened in this case was that A was a good marketer per se. It was his way of life, and he was good at networking, he was good at selling a product, he was good at creating a brand image for a product and creating a positive image for the product. But B, on the other hand, was an introvert, a gentleman who was probably good at doing office work, but was pushed into the marketing position due to the circumstances of life, or because it was more lucrative, or things like that. So you could see there's a conflict between your personality and the actual demand of the job. For example, a customer service role demands a person to be extremely patient, a person who speaks quite a bit and elicits information, being able to understand and being really effective in understanding the emotions of the customer and so on. But a person who probably is good at typing out documents and doing counting money may not be the best person at the customer's desk. So a role conflict, role ambiguity, not sure of what you have to do. A role overload means too much work for the position. Some people would complain saying they would just come out with a statement that says, hey, this is too much, expecting too much for the kind of pay that I get in the kind of role and role underload. Again, we talked about stress at the other end, where you get rusted if you don't have enough to do. And what happens to people on the bench in the IT industry? I mean, a lot of people think that these people enjoy their jobs, no work, but they get paid. But in reality, beyond a certain amount of time, a lot of people get frustrated on the bench because they're losing valuable time in their career. They're not able to also apply their skills or learn new stuff, and if they really want to move, they really haven't picked up any real-time experience. So role underload could also be something that is causing stress. Interpersonal relationships, working with people. Some people are not comfortable working with people. Some people are not comfortable networking. Some people find it difficult to work with certain types of people. Some people find it also challenging to work with the gender could also play an important role. Interpersonal relationships. The lady bosses, the gents, male bosses working. So those are all things that could be challenging, because in an organization, you need to get work done, and there's a lot of dependency on somebody else to get the job done. So if someone else doesn't do his job or her job, your job may be, or your deliverables may be affected. And I think a lot of you would have had instances like that. Ineffective communication. Yes, not being able to communicate effectively, not being able to sell well, not being able to get your point through as you wanted it to. I mean, responsibility, a job change, going from one environment to another, going from one position to another, and climate within a company. In the previous demo, I spoke about organizational culture. Now, climate is a kind of environment that is created as a result of the culture. Now, it could be a positive one, a negative one. Let me speak about one of the companies that I have been associated with in the past, where there were a lot of positive comments made before I actually had any encounters with the company, and there was there was a lot of orientation done on how the organization works and so on. But the problem I had was that when I entered the organization, I felt that all those comments were not in line with what I really saw. I found an environment and a climate within the company where it was not very supportive and not very empowering, not very kind of friendly, and there wasn't a lot of sharing and caring among the employees, and I found it very difficult to deal with that over a period of time. So that could be something. I mean, it's not just money. Manager is another key factor. I have an answer from here. Sujata Ramani, I think you have nailed it, and I mentioned it in the previous demo as well. I said, other than money, what are the factors that make people quit organizations? Right? Leave out the exceptional circumstances of, had to move due to some personal reason. But in most cases, the reason why people leave organizations, there are two reasons. One is the organizational climate, which is what we're talking about, and the other is a manager, right? And that's where they say people don't quit organizations, they quit their manager. Yep, that's exactly what I was trying to say. People quit. Thank you, Sujata, for that statement. I mean, people quit managers. They don't quit organizations because the manager is the face of the organization to a lot of people. Are there any other factors that you think that are organizational factors which causes stress? 83% of the exits are because of managers, right? That's no wonder the phrase exists in organizations that in the corporate circles, that we don't quit organizations, we quit our managers. Yes, I agree with that. I think. Okay, let me just move on to the next part, which is yes, I have Sujata coming up with the answer again. Poor benefits and policies. Yes, poor benefits and policies, not having the fringe benefits, the good ones, and organizational policies which are not designed to really give us the kind of work environment that you would like. Well, what's special about Google? I mean, Google is considered to be an organization which creates a really good environment for its employees, and thereby motivating its employees to get the best results. If you look at some of the top companies, I mean, if you go to the website, the top 100 companies to work for, you can see the different companies in different countries, being evaluated and being ranked on the basis of the best work environment or the best place to work for. So I think it's important for us to have that kind of environment in the workplace, and also an environment within a team, because a lot of the companies, it's about how you work in a certain team. Yes, that's Arun has come up with the answer. Snacks, indoor games, work environment is from Google, Microsoft. I consider those two as the best. Yes, probably yes. I think Google has been voted as the best one. I'm sure Microsoft is also there in some of the top ones. Yeah, trying to create an environment which is a great work environment. I think Google has always been famous for its work environment, and I think a lot of IT companies today are trying to take the leaf out of the booklet of these companies, trying to create environments where people can have gyms in the workplace, can have benefits, fringe benefits, provide support for travel, food, subsidies, and create forums for sharing information, and so on. So these are some of the things that let me just quickly move on to the personal factors. What is it that makes causes stress personally? So the first one given here is the impact of life change. I think it's yes, life change causes an important anything that man is traditionally designed to resist change, at least to a certain level. Even if we are focusing on a positive change, there is a certain level of resistance that exists within our body, and it creates an alarm, like we talked in the general adaptation syndrome. There is a resistance, or there is an alarm created. So moving from one position to another, moving from one location to another, moving from one job to another, moving from one role to another, even personal aspects like getting married could change life. Having a child could change life. Putting a child in school could change life. So there are events in life which take place both professionally and personally, which can have some kind of impact. And I spoke about the type A and type B personalities. The type A personality and the type B personality. Type A is again the motivated, the result driven. The type B is probably the more relaxed, enjoying the journey type. So that could be a type A in a type B environment might find it difficult. A type B in a type A environment might find it difficult. External, internal, and external belief in locus control. I mean, this is again the kind of belief that people have, that some people believe that external factors play an important role in deciding the end result. And then some people believe that it is their internal belief systems and their faith that brings about positive results. So that could also be a difference. That could be something that causes stress. Sometimes it would probably not be an issue, but within the mind there is a battle which is caused, and there could be other reasons as well. An accident, or something, health issue, something that has got to do with missing a loved one, moving away from loved ones. There are several personal factors that could impact, bring about things. Are there any other personal factors that you think you'd like to share which causes stress? Please share your personal factors. Any other factors that you think can cause stress? Yes, loss of dear ones, that could be a very, very important one. Loss of dear ones, illness to dear ones, illness to oneself. I have Karthi K. Bharadwaj saying no matter what a company, institute is providing, if it's not managed, yeah, that's very true. I mean, I've seen a lot of institutions spending a lot of money on certain aspects, which are probably not relevant to the kind of things that the employees want, and which are not used by the employees, and the whole system it goes for a toss, because a lot of investment has been made, but then it hasn't really matched the needs of the environment. Unstable relationships, very good. I would think that's a very personal thing. Unstable relations of family issues, unstable relationships even at the workplace, having conflict in the workplace. It all goes on to the question: is conflict a good thing? Like I said, stress is stress a good thing? Is conflict a good thing? I mean, some amount of conflict is actually good. It triggers your best performance, but beyond the point, it causes stress. So that could be some of the things that really help us, right? So these are some of the personal factors. Okay. Now, I have on the screen some consequences of stress. Subjective, things like anxiety, aggression, boredom. I think we discussed it, so let me quickly run through some of the depression, fatigue, behavioral effects, accident proneness, use of drugs. I think we had that. Excessive drinking, smoking, cognitive effects, which means the inability for you to collect information, analyze it, bring about a pattern, and take a decision, rationally. That's what the cognitive effect is. Not being able to put the facts together and associate it with something that is, producing a result. Then we have physiological effects. That is, the things in the body. For example, increased blood pressure, increased blood glucose levels, BP, heart rate. There's a type B diabetes, which is quite common in the corporate world today. Stress-induced diabetes, and not genetic heart diabetes, but caused specifically due to stress. And a lot of people complaining of this. This is exactly why we have young people suffering from diabetes today. We also have young people suffering from high blood pressure and breathlessness and so on. We also have organizational effects. People not turning up at work, not turning up at the important things, absenteeism, high attrition rates, and job dissatisfaction, and so on. Now, this is a stress question I'd like you to spend a couple of minutes doing. We have a set of questions. Maybe you can just answer. You can take a piece of paper and answer the questions yes or no. I'll give you 5 minutes for you to answer the questions here. Please try to answer the questions yes or no. You have a questionnaire here. I think this was also one of the things that one of the participants had asked during the earlier, asked the question, how do I know if I'm stressed? How do I know if an employee is stressed? So you could just answer answer the question on a piece of paper. You don't necessarily have to share it on the questions call, you don't have to share it on the chat. It's just for you to analyze yourself and probably have a better idea of where you stand as far as stress is concerned. So I think you have a statement given below. If you have a majority of yes as answers, it's recommended that you attend courses on time management. I think, why are we talking about time management? I think it's simply because a lot of people are stressed because they can't prioritize their work, or they're struggling to prioritize their work, and they're not able to manage their time and balance out time between work and life. So today's work environment has created a lot of challenges. Yeah, I got your output. You got a 6 no and 4 as yes. So you are still probably not in the stress level as mentioned in the survey. I think that's very important. I think the new challenge that we have today is a startup world. I mean, I read an article which spoke about how young professionals today want to go straight into starting a company or coming up with a startup due to the opportunities available in the environment. And the problem with the startup, the challenge with the startup is there is no fixed job role, and you have to basically cover all the roles together, which means you have to slog it out. And so the order of the day is slog, slog, and slog. Now, within a few years, what happens is some companies are successful and they gain a lot of, they get a lot of business. But the problem is, to manage the business, they need experienced professionals who have done that at a big level or a corporate level. And so when they hire these professionals, there is a lot of rift in the organization because the view of a startup is different from the view of a multinational company. So there is this kind of a challenge that we're having today, and probably in the days to come, we're probably going to see a rise in job stress due to the kind of changing dynamics of the environment, the changing expectations of the employees, and the very nature of job, especially after the 2008 recession. Things have changed, and I think most of working professionals today would have an understanding. So Panisulam, I think I have got your rating. I think you might have to try and see how you can reduce stress, which we're going to discuss in the last session, last part of this day. Yes. So I hope everyone's finished with the questionnaire. Let me just move on to the next slide. How do you manage stress as an individual? Can I have some answers? How can we manage stress at an individual level? What can we do as individuals to manage stress? Let me have some answers from you. I think some of you would have also tried some of these things. So let's see how we can listen to music. Yes, listen to music that can, change your mood. Yes, it's a good one. Tweeting, yes. Tweeting if you're a person who likes to, be active on the social network. Yoga, yes, some kind of physical, activity. Playing cricket in the weekend. I think that's something that a lot of organizations did. I did some training for a medium-sized IT company, and one of the things that the manager did was to take the employees out on Saturday to play cricket. But the question is, if you're going to have a lot of women, how are we going to involve them if they're not interested in cricket? Time out with family. Yes, a lot of people complain of not having time with the family because of work, and some of the families complain that there's not much we can do because the husband or the wife or the father or mother is not available. Yes, create a hobby or love something. Yes, Amit, I have a very good answer from you. Create a hobby or love something. But let me also tell you that when this hobby that you're talking about becomes a passion in life, and that becomes a thing that drives you in life, and you have a lot of deliverables, it could also be a challenge. I have Matthew coming up with the answer. Give some break during work hours and stay focused. Yeah, what we call as the quiet hours, where we can spend some time, without any disturbance. Enjoy life its own way. Do what you like and don't carelessly. Yes, Karthik, I think you fall under the type B personality, and I think to survive in this world, you might have to take some of the things of type B personalities, because we're all bound to face pressure and challenges, but how are we going to deal with it? Like what Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam said, it's not the challenges that define who you are. It's how you face the challenges, and there is no one who doesn't face challenges. So there's going to be some challenges in life, and how are you going to face it? Meditation, avoid discussing office matters at home, and so on. Even I had a friend who was working under a boss who was being very unfair to him, and beyond a certain limit he couldn't. There was a limit. There was a point of you know saturation for him, and he actually quit his job, and he moved out, and he worked on a freelance basis for about a year, which he used to rejuvenate himself, and probably a break from work for some time, if it's possible, could also be something that help people to work. So that's exactly what I have with the slide. So keep a pet, say your prayers, sleep right, spend time with children, take a walk and make friends, do something that you love, cultivate new interests, and dare to dream beyond just the workplace. What are the things that you think a company? Yes, Sujata, I have cooking recipes. That could be something. Moving into the professional cooking and competitive cooking and so on could also be brilliant things. Now, let me move on to the next one. How do you manage stress at a corporate level as a manager, as a part of management? What are the things that an organization can do to manage or reduce stress? Could you please tell me what are the things that an organization can do to manage stress? I think we discussed some of these things, but if I could just have some more. Outings, yes, team outings, very, very important. Not only for reducing stress, but also creating a bond between the employees. Giving a free hand to employees, yes, giving them the opportunity to explore themselves professionally, to be able to make decisions on their own, and so on. Spiritual activities, yes, that could be something that could be done. Understanding employee needs, conduct a survey, spend time. There's something called there's a great management principle called management by walking around, just walking. I mean, a lot of people complain that they never get to see their managers on the floor, and they don't really get managers who understand what happens at their level. So understanding employee needs, how do we do that? Maybe through surveys, maybe through forums, maybe through discussions and so on. Could we interact as colleagues and not as managers? Yeah. So we are talking about having flatter organizations. So not having multiple levels of, not having many levels, but having leaner organizations. Yeah. Creating physical exercises or having marathons could also be some of that. Periodic interaction with each employee by a manager, yes, that could be an important thing. Providing a mentor. Some organizations are very famous. One of the top banks in the world is famous for that. I think Barclays is quite famous for providing mentors to employees as soon as they join the organization. And one of the rules is that the mentor should not be a person involved in the direct vertical of the employee. Work ownership, empowering people. Empowering people could be something that can, trusting people. I think trusting people also could be another thing. One of the things I found quite complicated in the IT industry, or is coming up in the IT industry, is the idea of automation today. And you see that due to automation, people don't take decisions, are not allowed to take decisions, and they have to look back. They have to look upwards for the decision. So maybe that could be something that's important. Yes. Karthikeya has come up with a statement. I think removing managers will greatly help in place of them providing mentors. Yeah, I'm not sure how far that can be implemented practically, but I think it's all about managers growing up themselves and being good mentors also. Let HR connect the people. Automation is killing human touch. Yes, automation is killing the human touch. I have noticed that a lot of things are, even the basic interactions between the client and the on-site or the customer service advisor or the team leader or the associate in the company has been drastically cut due to this idea of automation, where things are just put up on an Excel sheet, and it's become very mechanical. The interaction is greatly reduced. So I think that's something that's very challenging today. Yes. HR getting down and understanding that's why they say a lot of HR should have some exposure to the industry that they're working in. They need to first go and understand what happens on the floor. So understanding the production, understanding what happens in production will help the HR fine-tune things towards their needs. Organizations should follow a win-win strategy. I think that's important. I mean, what happens sometimes is, especially in some smaller organizations, is that the organization seems to put a lot of pressure, but the outcome or the positive result is not really shared. And so the professional is probably, professional feels that he has not been given the due, either financially or recognition is not given. So a few things here that we have role clarity, we have a supportive climate, I think, which is what we talked about. Clear career paths. A lot of people also want to know what they will be in 5 years and how they can progress. For example, in the IT industry, one thing that I feel gives a lot of stress, especially in the service industry, I wouldn't say the IT industry as such, but service industry, is that the career ladder is such that if you want to progress into high-paying jobs, or even move into areas where you can get better, positions, you have to move into management. I mean, beyond the point, your technical skills don't carry you. They carry you, but they carry you at a very slow rate. So you're forced into moving into management, which makes you, so you probably are not management material, but you probably have to manage because that's the career path that you have to take if you want to grow quickly. Company-wide programs, there are some companies, especially companies like Tata and companies like Google and Microsoft, which have employee development program. There was a pharmaceutical company which I've been associated with in the past, which has created a fast-track program to see talented individuals and see how that seems to be suitable to fast-track certain talented employees in certain streams. So it's somewhat like an IAS exam. I mean, so if you can get through some of the tests and some of the assessments and some of the practical, deliverables, then you're taken into a fast-track program identified as potential candidates. So management is the only career path. I think, Arun, that's a very challenging thing that we're facing today. That if you compare some of the best and compare what happens in India, you see that, especially in the IT industry and some of the manufacturing industries, you will see that there's certain individuals who started their careers as programmers or as probably technicians, and probably ended their career as in the same role, and they became experts, and probably they had sufficient pay hike. But if you want to move into higher paying roles within some of the environments in India, you have to move into management, and a lot of people are not management material, to be frank. Okay, let's look at some statistics to just see where we stand as far as stress is concerned. Here's a statistic conducted in Canada, and this is among people who are highly stressed between the age of 20 and 64. What they've identified here is that 62% of the stress is actually caused due to work. So that's a very high percentage if you look at finances, family, and all those other factors. The survey conducted in 2010 indicates that 62% of the work, 62% of the stress is caused due to work, and the other factors don't play such a significant role. Let's look at another statistic conducted in BMW, South Africa. This particular survey indicates that occupational stress or occupational factors contribute to 24% of the stress, and it still remains the most stressful factor over finance and nutritional, social, environmental, physical, mental, spiritual, and so on. So in both surveys, you can see that the occupation seems to be putting so much pressure on the employees. It seems to be the most stressful factor in life. Or the most common stressful factor. I wouldn't say it's the most stressful factor, because loss of a loved one could be more stressful than the pressure that you have to work, but the most common factor is probably the stress due to work. So I talked about discussing this aspect of burnout. I mean, what is burnout? I talked about the 1998 World Cup, where you had stress for both Mr. Zidane and both Ronaldo, but I think Zidane was able to get out of his rust and achieve success, and Ronaldo was somebody who fell for the pressure and he experienced what is called as burnout. I mean, he experienced burnout and he experienced the kind of extreme feeling due to tremendous pressure, and that's what burnout is. And this is what we see in a lot of professionals today. They reach a point of total depletion, or they reach a point of total saturation in terms of their motivation, and they don't really feel like moving forward because they're under too much pressure. So what is the definition of burnout? It may be defined as a total depletion of physical and mental resources caused by excessive striving to reach an unrealistic work-related goal. So this is again what we have here, the challenge of you know facing unrealistic work-related targets and reaching a point of complete exhaustion or total depletion physically and mentally is called burnout. And a lot of employees today in the work environment burn out. And that's why they talk about people working in the industry. How many of them would really survive the 60 years that government employees did in the previous generation? And I have to say, not many. A lot of them would like to either move to different positions or different industries or verticals. Some of them may quit to start something which start a company. Some of them may move into an NGO. Some of them may really go into things that they really like. From moving, I know professional doctors who enjoy cooking, baking, and interested in so many other things. I know professionals who are interested in creating a sports branding company. I know professionals who have a vision to start a play school for kids, husband, wife together. So there are potentially a lot of things that burnout can cause. It can cause you to collapse, or it can cause you to think on the other lines. But what I would like to say is that the pressure that was exerted on Ronaldo during the '98 World Cup showed, and it was burnout. But what we can say is one of the greatest sporting comebacks was that the same gentleman in 2002 scored 2 goals in the final himself and won the World Cup for Brazil. So, pressure and stress need not necessarily be a bad thing, because when he came in the next time, there were less expectations. Although he was a star player, there weren't a lot of expectations. Brazil didn't go in there as a favorite, and they went out there and delivered the results. So that's what burnout is. So what are the symptoms of burnout? We have things similar to what we had in stress. Things like self-criticism, negativism, quick irritability, kind of being very impulsive in decision making, as well as in irritation and so on. So these are some of the things that we have in the symptoms of burnout. So how do we, W.S. Payne came up with a technique to reduce burnout, to identify, to prevent it at an early stage. And if you can't prevent it, go into mediation and trying to see how you can reduce it and see how you can reduce it again. So this is one of the things that W.S. Payne has spoken about, and that's what we have in the burnout. And with that, we come to an end of this deck. And I hope we have covered, some of the things that we have in our screen here, in our objectives for today. Let me go back to my slide, which spoke about what we wanted to cover today. Yes, so we have what we discussed in the beginning of the session, to understand what is job stress, to look at the two phases of job stress, to look at the nature of stress, and the stress questionnaire, and also how to reduce stress. Are there any questions? Do we have any questions based on our discussion today? Are there things that you would like to know more about, or are there things that you would like to address specifically in your organization or in your life? Or if you need some kind of material, you're always welcome to ask me that. If you have any questions, please do ask me questions, and we can see if there are any questions here, and then wind up the session once we are done with the questions. So if you have any questions, please do post them on the chat window, and I'll try to answer them. And if there are things that I cannot answer today, I will probably come back to you later. Shall we have some questions, please? If any of the participants have any questions, could you please post it on the chat window so I can try and answer them? I have a question from Prashant Rai. I think the question he's posted is, how can one find the positive stress reached at its saturation point? I don't think it's positive stress you're talking about. You're talking about positive performance caused due to stress. I think that's what, Prashant, you're trying to ask me. How do I know that stress has caused me to perform? I think in the long run you will feel satisfied and you will have contentment and you will really enjoy that kind of pressure being put on you, even though you fail due to the pressure sometimes. So it's all about being able to look at pressure or having a pressure or having a factor of stress put on you, which is generating a positive performance, is creating satisfaction and contentment within you. I think that's something that you can say. And also the results. I mean, to some extent, results could also be an indicator that you are generating positive results as a result of pressure in the environment. I think that's something that, and there is no, like, I wouldn't say the exact point. I don't think you can identify the exact point of, kind of telling or to proclaim that this is the point of peak performance. But if you can be around the peak performance or have a a framework or a kind of region or a range, that would probably be better. I have a question from Sujata. When necessary support from organizations lacking and you see employee stress, what can be the measure of help? I am not very sure of the question. Are you trying to say that you are trying to measure the stress, or what could be the kind of help that you can provide? I think this is limited to the kind of position you are in, Sujata. You might have to take this from the perspective of whether you're an employee or a manager. If you're a manager, you have probably more powers to empower and provide support and create environment, support your employees when it's needed, and also create an environment as much as possible. Sujata, I think it's important for us to understand that even though HR is a separate function, most of us as managers today have to perform the role of people management or have a significant role in people management. If there are specific activities in HR, it's about identifying or conducting surveys and identifying what are the things that, for example, as an organization where a strength of 3,000, where HR conducted a survey to try and identify the factors that are inhibiting or are creating higher attrition rates, and they found out two things. One was salary, and the other was the lack of development programs. So the HR proactively worked on trying to increase the pay, one, and trying to also create learning and development programs like training and employee development schemes and so on to work on that. So first thing is to identify what causes stress, or what is a general stress causer in the organization, and then trying to kind of address that. I have a question from Prashant Rai. Says, what should one do to overcome role underload stress? Prashant, I think if the institution is not providing support, you might have to look outside to kind of upskill yourself, or try to, for example, join a course like this, or looking for a specific certified program, certification program in your workspace, within your professional environment, trying to use the time to write competitive exams if that's what you'd like to do, trying to learn a new skill, trying to push yourself into some kind of physical activity. I think these are the kind of things that you can do as an individual if you have limited powers within the organization. So if you're a manager and trying to look at role underload stress of your employees, coaching could be an option, where you're coaching your employees for skills that are potentially going to be useful. Is quitting an option if you've had it? Karthik Bharadwaj, I assume that the it here is stress. Let me go back to your previous question. Is quitting an option if you've had it, or we should try something else? Karthik Bharadwaj, there is no definitive answer to that question, simply because it depends on what kind of stress the individual's experiencing. Quitting is one of the options. I wouldn't say quitting is probably the only option. Excuse me. If you have quitting as an option, moving into a new environment would also be, stress. But probably if it has reached a point of saturation and you are experiencing terrible burnout, I think quitting may be one of the options, considering there are a lot of opportunities available. When stressed out from resistance, Paneersalam, I'm not able to get your question. Shall I try answering that again? I have a question from Anish. Comparing stress and work levels of organizations in India and European nations, what suggestions do you have for organizations in India? Let me give you some of the things that European organizations, let me give some examples of what, let me share some points on the policies that European organizations have. European organizations really support welfare of employees. They ensure that most of the employees are not stressed out physically. For example, there is a rule in the medical segment that a nurse or a doctor should not work more than 48 hours. That's a European rule. So there is a rule that irrespective of the situation, a professional should not work more than 48 hours, because if a medical professional works beyond 48 hours, there's a tendency for him to make an error, a mistake, which would cause problems to the patients and also cause problems to the institution. They might have that's the rules, and there is a compulsory leave that all during their calendar year, which they can they put it into a leave for next year and so on. So these are some of the things that European organizations, they also some organizations also sponsor their trips, part trip, but they part sponsor the trips if required to ensure that they provide subsidies for travel, and they also ensure that depending on the kind of work environment you are in, they give you food subsidy and so on. These are some of the things that they also sponsor overseas programs. I think overseas programs are not very expensive for them because they can travel in Europe. They're also sponsored when they take part in some social events a lot more than what happens in India. So these are some of the things that European organizations do. Maybe we can do some of that. I think the holiday part is something that can be worked upon, because I see a lot of employees stressed, especially in Africa and in Asia, where I've seen people who have not gone on holidays. I've seen people who have not really been able to take leave when they really deserve it, and so on. So these are some things that I can see being done in the future. Amit, I have a question. What kind of policy what kind of policy do you advise to reduce stress in an organization? Amit, I really would have to ask you a few questions here to answer your question itself. The first one is the type of organization that you have. The second one is the kind of environment that you work in. For example, are you a manufacturing company working in a manufacturing environment which is very competitive, or are you an IT service provider working in an extremely competitive IT environment, or are you a government employee working in a relaxed environment where there's no competition? So you have to really answer some of the questions to answer the question that you have. The second thing is so you have a service industry. So the service industry is going to be highly stressed. There's going to be a lot of competition, and there is going to be a lot of stress internally and externally. You're going to have a QA department which is going to be sitting on your head to deliver quality, and there is going to be competition from external vendors who try to steal your contract. So what are the kind of the holiday policy is definitely one thing I feel that a lot of people like. I would like to see people refreshed. I would also like them to have a policy where people are given more chance to train and become better at their work. And I also think that one of the other factors that companies could do is provide sponsorship or provide some kind of support to employees to enhance their skills in those particular areas. So I think those are things that you could do. Maybe I can try and share some information on how policy can be designed to reduce stress, but that has to be implemented, and that has to trickle down at to the operational levels as well. In a growing organization, I have a question for Prashant. In a growing organization, what type of model should management follow to avoid stress and to grow at a great pace? Prashant, I would talk about reducing stress. I wouldn't say avoiding stress. I mean, there is going to be no environment, there's going to be no person in this world who's probably not going to have any kind of stress. So how do you minimize stress, or how do you reduce stress? Would be the kind of things. So you create. I think it's very important to create an environment of innovation, and create an environment of sharing, and create an institution with a flatter structure rather than having a lot of levels of management, and also provide both financial and non-financial incentives. Now, there are certain areas. Why are we looking at organizational behavior? A lot of people think it's just talking about some kind of theories, but I want to draw the relevance of this. There are certain theories which play an important role. For example, if you're trying to motivate an individual, I mean, motivation can also be linked to stress. How motivated is an individual, or how not motivated is an individual? So what satisfies employees? I mean, it's not always money, it's not always intrinsic things. It could be a combination, it could be one of the two factors. So what kind of trying to identify what kind of incentives the employees would really like to know. Trying to create an environment where these motivational needs are met is very important. Sometimes some environments, for example, a manufacturing environment, providing food at a very subsidized rate, along with bonus, could be very important. Probably in a graphic designing, a web designing company, the ability or the opportunity to try out new technologies and try out new designs, and being able to see their designs out there could be something that motivates them, and so on. Amit Jaiswal has come back with a question about the policy. Yes. So Amit, when I tried to explain, I tried to give you the types of companies and so on. And the policy that I think would like to change, again going back to one of the previous questions, is about how you can implement some of the things in a limited way, like the European policy on holiday, the European policy on work. These are common things, some of the things that can really help reduce stress or minimize stress. I wouldn't say avoid, but that's the kind of policy that you might have to create. And the problem with the policy is you might want to have some kind of evolving policies as well, things that might change based on the reaction and so on. But if you can understand the vision and the mission statement of the organization to a greater extent, you will be able to answer some of those policy statements, how you can design those policy statements based on the vision and mission of the organization. I might also try and send you some material. I might share some material on your account, on the Edureka account, so that you can also get more information on this summit. Do we have any more questions? How will you relate stress to competition? Now, again, there are two types of competition here, Prashant. The first one is internal competition, that is competition within your team, and the performance appraisal rating and so on. And the other is competition from the external vendor, the external competitor, the rival that exists in the company. So internal competition, it is found out that especially within the service industry, internal competition seems to be a major factor. It seems to be something that creates a lot of lack of trust and a lot of lack of unity among the teams, and it creates an environment or an organization climate which fosters a lot of enmity and rivalry in a negative sense. So that is how I'd like to relate stress with internal competition. Stress with external competition. Today there are multiple vendors, and that's the challenge of the startup world, which is what I was talking about. There are so many startups, and there are multiple vendors for a given product or service. The ultimate aim is to try and create a cheaper product, or provide more value for service. Like for example, if there are two vendors providing a service, and vendor A has been providing service for 5 years, now the client would try to use the pressure of vendor B on vendor A on seeing uh, that vendor B is offering a cheaper price. So when such a situation happens, one of the ways to reduce stress is to try and identify from the client what are the details that are given, how many more, what are the additional services that are being offered, what are the freebies, and analyze what can be done internally, and so on. And that could be some of the things that you can use, and you can use data from the past to support what you've provided so far. So that's some of the things that I feel you can do to also try and relate between competition internally and stress, and competition externally and stress. Matthew has left. Uh, any more? Shall we have one more question before we close the session? I thank you for being so interactive during the course of the session and being patient with me. Even though we have exceeded the time, I think most of you have been active. Is there any question, any last question? You can always post a question. I could try and answer that on the the query sheet. I can always get back to you on that. Is there one last question which I can take from you? Thank you so much once again for being a part of the session. Thank you, and you have this session also posted on your Edureka account, which you can go back and access. So thank you so much, and good night once again. Have a great day and have a great week. Bye for now. I'm signing off, Swapnisha. Bye.